What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Movie Emporium's TV review of Bel-Air Season 1, Episode 10, Where To. This is the season finale, and it is directed by Dale Stern. And now, before we begin, if you like the channel, awesome. Hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button, as well as commenting below on any video you watch, including this one. Okay, this was a intense episode, to be fairly honest. I have said before that I was struggling to really enjoy this series. It was having some major issues, and then episode 9 happened. I really liked episode 9, and then episode 10 happened, the season finale of Bel-Air season 1. Yes, we are at the season finale finally, and this is a rough episode, to be fairly honest. This is an episode that was the antithesis of what Phil and Viv were worried about, if that information ever got about Lou. This is an episode that kind of puts in the motion where Hillary's going to go. It puts in the motion where Viv is kind of heading, and puts in the motion of Will's choice. What is he going to do after the events of this episode? And for the most part, it was a very standard version of Bel-Air. It was a very standard episode. We see the openings of Viv's gallery, the kind of, upscale class art show Phil has officially denounced as being DA. And it was a nice little kind of piece, kind of moment before the storm takes over. And we see Viv kind of, mingling around the crowd, talking to people she knows. We see Hillary and, of course, Ivy come in there, and they're getting their picture taken and put on social media, because that's their character role, which actually gets a lot of push later on. We see Will looking at a painting that, of course, his aunt did, and then Carlton and Ashley look at the painting, which is like this montage of pictures that are put together to look like Will, and then he has a crown on top of his head. And Carlton goes like, I wonder what the crown means, and Ashley, throwing shade, she's like, maybe it's him trying to take over alpha male or status or whatever. But of course, Will tries everything in his power to talk to Lisa. It doesn't go very well. She's like, we'll talk tomorrow, but this is, Viv's night, all that good stuff. And it kind of is what it is. It's just this kind of moment for Viv to have her moment. And then she talks to Reed later on, and something's there. It's kind of left, unchecked at this moment. But it's a nice little segment to open up to kind of see Phil is trying to do everything in his power to support Viv as she goes off to do what she needs to do, because she's worried about why did she get the grant, but she deserves it. It's that type of thing. She needs a little more confidence in herself, I guess is the easiest way to put it. But this leads to the next morning when everything starts to spiral out of control, and Phil wants to see if Carlton wants to go do some time trials at a Grand Prix. He pulled some strings, which really makes, Carlton very excited and happy and all that good stuff. And on top of everything, Will is trying to get back with, of course, Lisa, and he calls Jazz, and he knows Hillary and Jazz are a thing. Is now officially, somebody knows about it. But it becomes a thing where she's willing to meet him at a coffee shop at 3 p.m. He actually leaves. He doesn't leave to go see Lisa, but he leaves for whatever reason, for school, or I think he has practice or something like that, but he leaves to go do that. And this Toyota Corolla, as Will leaves, this Toyota Corolla pulls into the gated house of the Bel-Air house. And Phil has done his thing. Like, most of this is, like, once again, real standard Bel-Air stuff. But Phil is, talking to Carlton. Then the doorbell rings, and Phil answers the door. And who is standing at the door is Lou. But we don't see Lou because Phil's like, oh, Lou, so we know who it's Lou. Well, there has to be that moment that you go, holy beep, holy S, and you realize that this show has some pull. And who but none other is playing Lou but Marlon Wayans. I went, holy crap. Marlon Wayans in a dramatic role playing Lou, which is a really interesting casting choice for that individual. We know Lou in the original Fresh Prince is kind of a scumbag, kind of a douchebag, and this is possibly a different take of him, I guess you could say. But it leads to Phil and Lou having a discussion, and Lou tells Phil about the fact that he found out by Jeffrey that Will wanted to see him, and Phil doesn't think it's a good idea, but Lou is throwing his richness in his face, his money in his face. It's just everything you can imagine Phil worried about when it comes to his decision to want to come see Will. the fact that he's still scraping by, the fact that he's been in jail for 13 years for something we still haven't found out about at the moment. It's one of those things where Phil is really worried that it's going to be a thing. And we've also learned that Phil was his lawyer, so that makes it even more problematic in the situation when it comes to when it comes to Will and what he will, possibly find out. But he says he wants to see his son, and Phil's like, let me talk to Will and come back later on. He's like, what am I supposed to do? He's like, well, we waited 13 years. You might as well wait a little bit longer. But as we know, if you watch the episode, I'm sure that you have at this point, Carlton has seen everything. He's seen Lou there. He's seen him walk in. He's seen the fact that he even tells Will he's seen Lou talk to him for a little while. And he goes into Phil's study, and he finds the envelope, and he opens it up. And this is when he walks into Will's room with the envelope, and he tells him that Lou was at the house. What is going on? Will's really confused. He shows him the envelope. He's like, you need to read this. Will's like, I don't want to read it. He's like, you have to do it because my father's even not telling me the truth on what's going on. And it's basically Carlton realizing that Will is in a predicament that he doesn't want to be in, but Will reads the information, and he approaches Phil and Viv about it, and it's really tense, to be fairly honest. It's really uncomfortable because Will has read the information. He knows now that, of course, Phil was the lawyer. He knows now that his father was in jail. He wants to meet Lou, and then, of course, he calls his mom and tells her the whole incident. And she's like, I didn't know he was there. And he's like, why didn't you guys tell me this? And she just didn't feel it was right. He was 4 years old. But the bubbling of anger in this episode is starting to, like the flames and the lava is starting to spew. Smoke is starting to rise, so the volcano is about ready to erupt in this episode, as you can tell. Now, I just want to get this also out of the way. The Hillary and Ivy stuff. Hillary has found a way to get out of the contract from Cato, I guess you could say, and she uses the ability because there's a photo shoot going on, and Hillary's like talking to Ivy and talking about giving her ideas about how to make her look more personable to the crowds and stuff like that. And basically she offers, why don't we start our own company? I'll work underneath you. All you have to do is buy out my contract. Ivy actually wants to buy out the house, so if she feels like it's a good idea, Hillary's kind of getting her out, I guess you could say, because she doesn't have an out. She's like, what do I do? I'm not going to ask my parents for money, all that good stuff. And that's where it's kind of left off there. I just want to throw that in there real quick before I forget about it. But the whole concept of Hillary, I loved at first. Feel it's kind of, it is what it is now. I will see what happens in the second season, and when eventually that comes. But I don't know. The Hillary stuff's just kind of whatever. It's not even really that. It feels like something they had to finish off to make the season finish. And it's season 1-ish. So we've come to the culmination of everything that's been going on in the last few episodes with Will's father and the possible problems that it could arise from out of it. And Lou is brought in the house. Viv talks to him, kind of threatens him a little bit. It's like, just act like a father, act like a human being. And Will is introduced to his father that he hasn't seen in 13 years. And as you expect, it's not going to go very well in the beginning because Will is angry. He doesn't understand why this is happening. But Lou basically tells him, my father and I did not get along very well. Things started to break down when he went to prison, and I just didn't want that to happen between us. But the problem is, you can't know. I mean, if somebody goes to prison and you go visit him, how do you know that things are going to break down? I mean, that's the problem with these people not telling Will, and this is why Will gets to the point he does, is they're making decisions for him without realizing, giving him the choice. They think this is the best thing for him. But if you've learned anything about the best thing for a person, sometimes they have to make that decision on your own. And Jazz actually makes this very clear at the end of the episode, but it comes down to he did it because he feels like they couldn't, they wouldn't get along with each other and things would start breaking down. But Phil does warn Will. He says, your father is a liar. He's going to lie to you. He's going to be an individual that's not going to be truthful. And it basically breaks down to all of them. They haven't been truthful to Will at all. But it comes down to, they have a conversation on the couch is actually going pretty well. They're having a moment where they're laughing about an incident that happened when Lou was trying to get an autograph from Iverson. And then it turns really heated when Lou blames his mom for putting a lot of pressure on him and blaming his mom for why he went to jail. And as we find out, Lou went to jail because he conned a man who said he had money, who was owed money, and he really hurt this guy and put him in a hospital. And Will explodes at Lou's character, and Lou explodes, actually grabbing Will's neck. Phil has to intervene, and it just completely breaks down everything that Phil and Viv had worried about, that they had warned Viv about or Vi about. It just completely just erupts into a major confrontation, and Will runs out of the room, and of course Lou's like, screw this, he's gonna have to deal with the consequences of these actions, which who knows what's gonna happen to Lou, if he's gonna show up in the next season, which I'm sure he will. But this takes Will into his room. He's packing everything up. Carlton tries to calm him down, trying to talk about how Phil lied and stuff like that, and everything that had happened. And Will's just like, I can't trust anybody. He leaves, and Phil and Viv are like, we're your family. And this is when he explodes at Phil and Viv, and he explodes at everyone. He's not answering his calls from his mom, and then he actually says to Ashley, Hillary, and Carlton that they're his family, but he doesn't acknowledge Phil and Viv. So it's a really tense, really sad moment, that everything that Will had been, he feels betrayed, and he runs out, and that's when people are trying to look for him. But it's also everything that Jeffrey had warned them about. Jeffrey was trying to tell him he needs to make that choice. He needs to decide, because what you're doing is you're crippling him. You're making him out to just regret everything about what he's done. And it's amazing to watch all the people, to watch Carlton be the most hurt by this. Not hurt by what has happened, but hurt by the fact that Will's leaving. Because he actually drives off to look for Will, and he basically says, what happened to Jeffrey? The whole thing of Jeffrey and the whole light was brought out. Ashley's like, we know about what happened to Jeffrey, which is going to be another problem in the second season that's going to be played out. But Carlton actually drives over to Lisa's house, and Lisa's like, he stood me up. He says he loves me, but he stood me up. And Carlton's like, he left. His father came into town. I need your help to look for him. And all these things is just one of those things that you knew was going to happen when this stuff, because this was going to have to close out this season. This whole idea of who Lou is and the father and everything that happened, it was going to become that boiling point that's slowly building until it erupts into this big volcano. And it's pretty devastating to watch. It's actually really emotional for an episode, and especially for Bel-Air. Because if you remember the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, that episode with Lou, it was one of the hardest things you watch in TV, because of how much it plays into fathers and the loss of fathers, and runaway fathers and stuff like that, and how difficult it is for people to come back into lives, and if they're not good people, it affects in so many tragic ways, and it just really plays out very, very, very sad in a lot of respects, I guess you could say. But this leads to Will. He's on the top of the hill overlooking Los Angeles, and I think he either contacted Jazz or Jazz knew where he was. But Jazz approaches Will, and Will is like, they lied to me. This is the big mistake of my life. I'm going to be who I was always meant to be. And Jazz is, like I said, always been a better character in the series than he ever was in Fresh Prince, and the simple fact that he's more of a Geppetto in a lot of ways for Will. But he comes straight out and he says before the episode ends, he's like, you have a family that loves you in Bel-Air, but you have to make the choice. You have to be the one to set your own path, to set your own life, the one that will define who you are. You don't have to go back to Philly to define who you are. You make your path for the better if you want to. And he says the decisions you make are the ones you have to do by yourself. And that's very impactful and very actually well spoken, because in life you have to make the decisions about who you want to be, the paths you want to change, the paths and choices you want to make, because nobody's going to do it for you. You have to do it yourself, and you can have that stability, but in the end, if you want to go on a path to be successful and be somebody that does something good, or if you want to go down that path to not be good, it's a choice that you have to make. And it's really, really poignant in a lot of respects. It ends the episode. The episode pans up past them and stuff like that to LA, and it just really hits home and really has a nice point to end the episode. I thought that was really impactful to have a character like Jazz, who constantly in Fresh Prince got thrown out the house, but here it's like a really impactful statement that he makes. So, but that's where the season ends. It ends on that moment. We have to wait till season 2, which probably will come in early January, February of 2023. Maybe it'll come this year. I don't know. There is definitely a second season coming, and we'll see if they go season 3 or if it's just a 2-part season. But I think this really redeemed the series from where it was going in the middle half of the series, for especially for season one. I think it is a little tropey and a little you can kind of see it coming. To be fairly honest, there's something that has to do with jail and the reason Lou, because it is homaging to the Lou from Fresh Prince, but it also is giving a little more meat to the bone, I guess you could say, a little more impactful. So there is some tropes, there is some similarities, but I think it really does work, and I really think it sets the tone to make a very interesting, very expanded, possibly well thought out episode or season 2 whenever that comes. But yeah, I mean, I was pretty shocked that I was not really hopeful to want to go back and watch season 2 for this series, but I think I will, just on the simple fact of how good this episode ended up being, and how it ended up ending. But for final thoughts, this is a season that was really wonky. It had a lot of issues. It repeated a lot of problems. And I think for a first season, it is successful, but I think it needs a lot of work to have a really impactful second season, which I think, the writers and cast and Morgan Cooper and everybody involved can do to make it more impactful for a series. But overall, for my official score for the season, I'm giving it 8.9 out of 10. It doesn't hit a 9 because there are some episodes that are not great, but it's still a pretty respectful or pretty respected season for a reboot of a series that was 100% a comedy, and I'm interested to see where these characters go next. So 8.9 for the season, a 9.5 for this episode, and yeah, that's going to do it for Bel-Air season 1. It's crazy when these seasons end, or for each series I watch, because you get to a point and you're like, oh man, I don't get to watch this next week. So it's a really interesting thing to happen with Suspicion and stuff like that. So yeah, that's going to do it. That's going to be my take for the first season of Bel-Air. Definitely give it a chance if you haven't watched it yet, or if you watched this review, apparently you have watched it. But I think the cast, the crew, and everybody involved does a really nice job. So, but with that said, that'll do it. That'll be my take on both the first season of Bel-Air as well as this episode, which is Bel-Air season 1, episode 10, Where To. And in comments below, what do you think of the season? What do you think of the episode? What do you think of the whole storyline? What do you want to see out of season 2? All that good stuff. But anyways, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like these videos, awesome. Hit that like button, and we'll see you guys in the next season of Bel-Air. Peace out.